Marion and I are so pleased you could all come stay for the weekend. I hope the train ride wasn't too arduous.
This is a very linchpin scene for the movie because it's showing a really key component of Hearst. And Hearst used to have these grandiloquent parties where he kept his finger on the pulse of culture.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
I mean, you're getting a whole background. You're getting politically of what's going on in the world.
Happy birthday to you.
I remember reading the script in that scene, and it's sort of like you turning the page and then turning the next page and then turning the next page and realizing how long it was.
I will not demur at page count. I look at it as a fun challenge.
We started by doing an immense amount of research, and we actually found a lot of really great research from the period and then today. And this particular room, which was sort of an assembly room / parlor, was sort of a mess. It was kind of, he actually had like a ping pong table and different things like that in there.
This is 16th century man cave.
Yeah, we wanted to keep order and romance to it so that it didn't feel so haphazard.
My heart is full to bursting. I can't express in words.
Please don't try.
WR, nothing is more precious to me than your friendship and sage advice.
In the films that I've worked on with David in the past, we have kind of developed a shorthand, or a style rather, to add lots of layers. Strangely enough, in this film, we concentrated oftentimes on taking away, having less sound, because we realized that the more sound we had, the harder it was to really focus in on all of the dialogue and all of the performances. And there's so many layers sound-wise in terms of dialogue in the scene.
Our country should be flattered that you picked its birth date as your own. The rest of us have to be satisfied with the one we happen to be born on. Here's to your rich Canadian imagination.
It was really just about figuring out all of those camera positions and figuring out how we were going to tell that story geometrically within the environment. And of course, it's all done in deep focus. There's good examples over Gary's shoulder looking back at Marion.
David, you're not that keen on pickups. You get a rhythm and you get a momentum going. Whereas with just cutting in on something and picking up something, you don't have that run-up. It's like trying to stand in front of a hurdle and jump over it.
We all want to welcome the Thalbergs back from Irving's long convalescence in Europe.
Thank you, WR.
Good to see you, Irving.
Thank you, Mr. Hearst.
Norma.
Anybody seen anything good lately?
I just saw 42nd Street. It blew my wig.
You can take the girl out of bed stuff.
It was incredible. Everything comes into how I played her, all the preparation and everything that's happening on the day with the sets, the lighting, the costumes, everything, of course, goes into it. And I'm just fed by all of it.
Hopefully what you're getting is an evening around the campfire from 16 people who just met earlier in the day, got dressed for dinner, and have now had cocktails. And this is going to continue on until Pops goes to bed, and then the gin comes out, and who knows, we end up at the Neptune.
It was like being in a play. It feels dynamic and cinematic, but you got to live this life for 9 minutes with these characters in this room, and you don't often get that.
There are probably 4 threads at work in this scene. One is giving you life at San Simeon.
And tonight, we're celebrating our great friend's birthday in our little hillside home. Charlie. Happy birthday to you.
2 is showing you the animosity between some of the Hollywood factions.
Can't last. Who in the world takes a lunatic like that seriously?
Well, the last time I looked, 40 million Germans.
Mank, you're always so wonderfully contrary.
Chess and Sanborns der Coffee. Can 40 million Nazis all be wrong?
I just read they've opened their first concentration camps and started burning books. What's next? Movies? Is that true, Irving?
Yes, LB.
Hitler Schmidtler.
3, it's showing Marion. She was the queen at San Simeon.
I love Lowell Thomas's voice.
Oh, is he single? I sat across from him at the Brown Derby once. He bought me a drink.
He didn't.
She was also prone to making mistakes.
I heard Pops on the phone helping to pick the president's cabinet like casting a movie. They can stop a guy like Sinclair. Couldn't you, Pops? Pardon. I don't know what I'm saying.
And finally, the scene, as it eventually, transitions to the outside,
Go.
it's about two people falling in friendship with one another. And so the text is getting you a dumpster load of backstory, but it's all sort of the carrot that drags the audience through it to see Herman and Marion alone and see his platonic affairs.
The bench we actually built and we placed it in. Actually, the exterior set pieces were quite simple. But in terms of the radio, fortunately, there's a prop house called History for Hire, and they had one that we were able to use.
Nerds.
What is that?
Pops' radio phones. Never ever be out of touch with your empire.
David got us very involved in just the acoustics of that prop. Because of the heaviness of that radio and the gin and everything, it's like, I need a very specific echo that makes it sound like Marion is reaching deep within to get her stash, and it has to have the sonic signature.
Can't imagine David wanting that.
Yeah, exactly. But it demonstrated the texture of what it was that they're sitting on, and it kind of reaffirmed the fact that this is this marble texture. It was an interesting discovery for us, and we were adding those sounds to the props.
The one thing you never ever talk about is Upton Sinclair.
I noted. The moment he's mentioned, the evening turns.
It's sort of a sore subject.
Really? Do tell.
The night scene is done day for night, and that required a lot of testing as well. Day for night is a cinema technique that goes way back to the early days of cinema, and it involves deliberately underexposing the camera so that the daytime looks like it's been shot at night. And it's an old cinema technique that we're winking at here a little bit.
What do I have to complain about? I live in a fishbowl, but anything I want is mine.
It's a strange scene, the idea of the button, the rim shot from every little passage. Monkeys in their monkey business, elephants in their memories, giraffes in their long necks. It was one of those things you have to buy into. I had trepidations to the idea of having a CG animal, but Jack convinced me that this is what these kinds of movies were like, and would indulge in these little things that were cartoony but pleasurable.
Yeah, it's really got a great charm to it.
It's got the animals are in on it.
Nobody makes a monkey out of William Randolph Hearst.
The sounds of the giraffes was interesting because we realized in our research that giraffes really don't make a sound.
Not the most vocal creatures.
Yeah, so we created something. Later on, David decided he wanted to have Gary and Amanda redo their dialogue, and so consequently, this scene is 100% ADR.
Sorry. Instinct.
My fault.
I was 8 months pregnant doing all my ADR, just a Tito's bottle full of water.
The advantage that we had with it, you might ordinarily look at it and think, that's a lot to do. But the delivery of the dialogue was very clean in as much that there wasn't naturalistic in that sense.
We were just getting rid of leaf blowers and rider rental trucks that were backing up to move to the next location. So we weren't inventing anything. We were simply replacing.
And because we had to loop all of the dialogue, we had to help the other crafts, the costumes, the jewelry, the footfalls.
Tell me something, Mank. The truth. Could you see me playing Elizabeth Barrett Browning or Marie Antoinette? Irving's bought them both.
I like to think that Marion and I had a similar approach to playing our characters. There's some things you just don't notice that you're doing anymore as an actor when you're really in something, but you cannot hide her essence. And I love exploring this real person and this real relationship that she had. A lot of it was, the biggest challenge of my life, thankfully, but it was also easy in some ways.
Ah.
Her hair, gold. Her cheeks, roses.
Nice.
Her lips, coral. Her neck, alabaster. Her bosom, marble.
Marble? Maybe once.
Ivory her hands, and her whiteness, snow.
You wrote that?
No, a fellow named Cervantes.
It was one of the best scripts I've read in a long time. When you play a fictional character, you're making all that world up. But to be really honest with you, I think Jack Fincher had obviously done a lot of that work. He had captured something on the page, emotionally, psychologically. The character was pretty much there.
There are letters of accent, letters of tone. But the best of all letters is the letter alone. Now, those I wrote.
If the writing's really good, then you follow the signs. It's much like a conversation Amanda and I would have.
Yeah, it does. It does feel, of course it feels natural. As soon as we yell cut, we're in a different conversation as Amanda and Gary, and then yell action and you're back in the scene.